This may be controversial. I don't rely on group chat advice. I don't like to crowdsource my intuitions or my decision making.
Tarini Gupta, COO of the Spotted Cow from Ashby, who left her corporate career to churn her passion into a thriving artisanal cheese startup.
I think success does not come from that 9 to 5 mindset. I think you have to do more than that.
If I'm not making an impact, if I'm not contributing, that's when I feel emotionally off. That's when I feel like maybe I'm not good enough.
Identity is not work. Identity is not your business. This is something I've recently observed about a lot of places where people are so attached.
If you're too overly attached, you may not even take the correct business decisions.
I think Gen Z, very rightly, does like the title of ownership. And I think a large part lies on recognition.
The one thing I didn't have was patience. I can keep setting up for the next 7-10 years, get that title, but I don't want to wait 7-10 years. Like, I want to achieve that recognition, as you said, in 2 years, in 1 year, in 3 years. It's like your expectations are skyrocketingly high, which means that your efforts need to also kind of compensate if you want to reach that next level.
So Tarini, take us back to the Spotted Cow. How did your decision to join a company that was not founded by you? What was it like leaving the corporate life? And was it a total breakdown, or did you feel like this is something new and it's going to be totally exciting and you want to achieve it?
So honestly, it was, none of those. It was a lot of self-awareness. It was a lot of reflection. I took almost 6 months before kind of making the move to understand what is it that I want from my career. Where do I see myself in the next 10 years? Basically, how do I want to end up when I'm around, 40 in terms of career? And that's when I got thinking about all the potential opportunities. But I'll take you back. So at that point, I was in London. I was working with JP Morgan. I was in finance. It was theoretically the dream job. And there was a lot of stability there. So, you had a stable income. You had a stable sort of like a career path that, in the next few years, you'll reach this level. And then after a few more years, you'll reach another level. So there was a lot of certainty there. So to kind of even think about, okay, now I want to maybe not do this anymore and kind of move to a totally different world and space and level of certainty, and you have no idea where it's going to go, was difficult. So it took me almost 6-7 months of a lot of reflection, and that's where I understood that honestly I'm somebody who thrives on building. I'm somebody who my true skills are working with people, working with products, understanding customers. And I wasn't really finding that at that time, which was sort of more like a desk role. So I don't know how, it was almost like a sort of manifestation. I was going out, speaking to people, trying to figure out, okay, what sort of space can I be in? But Spotted Cow just came along and the pairing was perfect. And why was it perfect? It was perfect because I've grown up with everyone in my family working in either hospitality or food and beverage. My family is like an avid traveler. Every holiday is like, we'd based out of like, what's the food experience there, where can we go to get the best culinary experience. So the exposure to food, especially European foods, cheeses, wines, that world was something that was super familiar to me at a very young age. So Spotted Cow came along, it was artisanal cheeses, and it was just like boom, the kind of role that I was looking for was not to be a solo founder. I didn't at that time have like a burning idea, but I had a lot of burning energy. So I remember even before I officially started with Spotted Cow, I was like pretty much juggling 2 careers. I was still at JP Morgan because I still couldn't make up my mind in a sense that, yeah, okay, I want to quit this really comfortable job and move on. So to answer your question, it was none of those things really, but it was more just understanding myself, what do I want from my career, and just a lot of like self-respect, like kind of reflection, and making a decision that was better aligned to who I really was.
Tell me, do you feel, or this is my observation, that Gen Z like yourself find it easier to move away from a desk job, from a corporate job, from stability to a job that may require a lot more creativity, to a job that may be more uncertain because everyone seeks that thrill of uncertainty? Or do you think it is because everyone feels like they have more potential than just a 9 to 5 job?
So I think it's definitely romanticized that the startup world is, the cool space. People in my sort of generation are moving towards the startup world or joining like an emerging company, getting that recognition, creating innovative things. But while it's romanticized, I don't think they crave the uncertainty. I personally, for me, my biggest kind of fear is uncertainty. So I can't imagine why people would crave that. But what I think this generation really craves is ownership, autonomy, things like that a bit more. Having said that, I also think that it's so personality dependent. Some people, they crave structure. Some people crave, the ability to scale something. Some people might crave creativity, but another person might crave a role that's more like optimizing related. So it's such a personality dependent thing that there's no right or wrong. And even in this generation, there's still 50% people that are going down the route where they are kind of working towards that big corporate job.
I think 50% may be a large number. I think the percentage is shrinking there. I think Gen Z, like you said very rightly, does like the title of ownership. And I think a large part lies on recognition. I think the main mantra has become recognition. If I do
True.
this job, will I be recognized or not? And in a corporate job, no one's really recognized until you reach a certain position.
Very
If you've not made it to VP, which is in 10 years of hard work, no one's really going to know you're working at a JP Morgan or any big corporate firm. So it takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience. And I think that may, according to me, may be missing. Do you think you needed a lot of courage you would have to walk away from something that you said was stable, was definitely going to give you the income, the stability, the future, and join a company that is on a founder stage and you being a non-founder? So how did you find the courage to do that?
So I think that's really interesting. And also the point that you mentioned earlier about patience. The one thing I didn't have was patience. And that's why I was like, you know what, I can keep setting up for the next 7-10 years, get that title, but I don't want to wait 7-10 years. Like I want to achieve that recognition, as you said, in 2 years, in 1 year, in 3 years. So you're bang on when you say that Gen Z may not have that patience and they want that recognition. So definitely there. And that's what gave me that courage to kind of step away from that comfortable, stable job, because I just didn't have the patience. And every day I was looking, okay, what else can I do? What else can I get involved with? And that itself was like not stable. Your mind always working, what else can I do? What else can I do? What more can I do? And that's when I realized, actually, no, I can't be in a space that's boxing me up, that I have a job description. It's limiting, especially at the level I was quite junior at that time. And yeah, it was basically that. The impatience gave me the courage to step away.
But don't you think in life, it takes a lot of consistency to actually make it? And by make it, I mean like actually make it, not a one-time success, not a short span success, not it worked out for a bit and then I moved away. I got that 10 minutes on YouTube and I made it big and then, I walked away from it. That actual consistency to be really successful in the larger scheme of things, it takes a lot of consistency. So do you have a take on consistency?
So I think you're absolutely correct. Consistency is everything. There have been weeks and months where I haven't seen a result, but I just don't stop. So, if it's about acquiring a new client, I'll just keep trying to acquire them from one route or another route, but I'll never give up on it. And you're absolutely right, because I have seen that actually kind of reflect into closing that client, because, okay, today they may be busy, day after they may be traveling. I may not have got through to the correct person in the team. And then 1 month later, I get the client. So consistency is honestly everything. But I think it's about like deciding where you want to spend your efforts
And
in being
consistency
consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, in the end, everyone's choices, reflect in their career. So yours has reflected really well. You've made a huge success out of where you are at. So tell us, did investing in somebody else's vision bring clarity or chaos to your mental health?
Honestly, it was like absolute clarity. The moment, like, as I mentioned even earlier, before I was even officially with Spotted Cow, it felt like my own. And I think like that's just a huge testament to the founders, Prateek and Agnay. They gave me that, level playing field. They gave me that freedom to make decisions, to have a say, to make it my own baby, honestly. So there was never any element of chaos, also because I was finally doing what I liked. I was not in a box where I could only contribute X, Y, and Z. I was being able to think in all parts and for all parts of the business. So it was definitely not chaos. It was more like okay, this feels right. You know, I'm in the space that I should be. I'm spending my energy and efforts in sort of jobs and tasks that I enjoy doing, that I'm good at doing. So yeah, definitely a lot of clarity.
Do you think out of everything, what comes across to me in this conversation is what you really craved and what you got and what you love is the freedom?
Yeah, I think that's like, I haven't thought about it like that, but I think you are right.
Because I think Gen Z in the end only thrives on freedom of choice. So the generation before, for example, worked in a lot more corporate jobs. We worked our way up. So we were not founders at 20, 21. Now that you see at 16, 17, there are founders that didn't exist in the generation before.
True.
It was very, very rare.
Yeah.
Because the thought process was you finish schooling, you go into higher education, do your undergrad, postgrad, then you get into a corporate job, you learn your way up, and then you found a company with expertise. But today, the thought process, I want freedom from day one. I will create something that will change the world. Do you feel like you're able to function from that thought process, or do you have a different one?
So I definitely think you're right. A big element of it is freedom. But having said that, I think all the experiences I've had in my career has made me ready to do well with the freedom. You know, it's not always that if you're given that power of freedom, you can actually perform well or you can handle yourself best. So I think like for me to go to JP Morgan, get that discipline, get that experience, learn how to work with people from all countries, of all, you know, parts of life, it was really important for me to do that, to be able to handle this level of freedom. Definitely it was required.
So, how do you handle decision fatigue? So, every person working in a firm, working in a company as an owner, so now that you're a business owner, has a lot of decisions to make. And I think there comes a point, or there are many instances where we feel like, am I making the right choice? Am I making the right decision? Is this benefiting everybody or is benefiting self? So, do you go with gut, logic, or group chats?
Definitely a combination of gut and logic. To be really honest, and this may be controversial, I don't rely on group chat advice. You know, I don't like to crowdsource my intuitions or my decision making. And also for me, it's always been, if I'm taking someone's advice, like it has to be someone who I want to mirror. You know, it has to be someone whose decisions and outcomes is something I want to mirror, I want to achieve. So for me, group chat advice has always been a no-no, unless, okay, yes, this is the person, you know, I want to be like him, what he's achieved, I want to achieve. That's when I'll go to them for advice. But it's more on gut, and it's a lot more on like practicality, because I am quite a practical person. So I do that homework, you know, I will do that research. I'll go out of my way to understand something before giving it my all. But if there's something that I actually believe in, you know, it has my 1000%. So it's a mix of gut and logic.
How does Gen Z define success?
I think for everyone, success is so different. You know, for some people, it's about having your face on that billboard. For some people, it's about creating that amazing product. For some people, it's about like bridging a problem that, you know, hasn't been bridged. And for some people, it's the numbers, you know, how much, what's the profit we're making, or what's the valuation my company is. So it's very tough to say, but I think it's maybe, I don't know, I think some people have one of these aspects that they are craving to achieve as a meter of success. But I think for me, if I had to put myself, it's a little bit of everything.
So do you think, so like you said, it's a little bit of everything. And I think that is what most people think outwardly. That if I make a bit of money, and if I get a little bit of success, and I get a little bit of stability, and I get a little bit of recognition, I'll be really happy and I'm successful. But in the end, your name is on the billboard and you don't have money to pay for the bills, or you make a lot of money and you get no success and no recognition, I don't think people feel successful. So do you think success is actually an amalgamation of all of that, or it's actually in the end literally just being recognized?
I don't know, because, you know, these days when I speak to fellow founders and, you know, people in this whole ecosystem, there's so many different wavelengths and strategies that each business is following. So, you know, some will want to have that recognition because the valuation is higher. So, you know, you can maybe sell your brand in a better value. Or there are some people who want to have build a legacy brand and keep it going for generations, in which case the strategy is totally different, in which case maybe the recognition is not as important.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to answer that exactly, because I still think that it's so like dependent on the business. the founders, the people leading the company, like what is their eventual goal for this company. So I still think it's a bit of both.
Because, like you said, legacy businesses, I don't see Gen Z's attitude being legacy businesses. It's more like, I want to create this, I want to make it big, I'll get crowdfunding, and then I'll sell it, make a name for myself, and move on. And I hear or I read a lot about cases where they've made it big and then they're 30 and then they're lost. They don't know what to do. What is your take on making it really big very early? How does that affect the journey of life?
I think your expectations just go skyrocketing high, if you made it so big so early. Again, I think it's a bit of like being grounded. If you're grounded and you're aware that now I've reached this stage. There used to be something in psychology, and you might know this better, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you achieved one level, then you're like not satisfied with that, then you want the next level. So I think it's like your expectations are skyrocketingly high, which means that your efforts need to also kind of compensate if you want to reach that next level. So yeah, I mean, I don't know like how one can position that, but from what I see people around me, like once they've reached their, measure of success, or when they've reached like a really high level, there's always something that they're thinking next.
I feel like I meet a lot of people who are lost. So I met somebody very recently who founded a company, a tech company, and I think she was 24 at the time, and went to the US and then sold it at the age of 30. Came back 31, absolutely lost. Doesn't know what to do next, because tasted that level of success, tasted that level of money, tasted that level of comfort where anything is available to you and nothing is out of reach. What do you do then? So, my point is, today, if I'm working, and I'm sure you're working, we wait for our next holiday. We wait for our next purchase.
Yes.
We wait for the next level of success to feel a certain way. But then when you've achieved it all at a very young age, by a tech company, by being a YouTuber, by being an Instagram guru, by being whatever, and it happens really early, how do you strike a balance to keep going? Because it's very difficult. And I want to know your perspective, because you're a different generation.
So for me personally, I think it's about like inherent value systems. So if you have those value systems, even if you've achieved that level of success, you may not want to have that level of expenditure, or you may prioritize certain things because you're like, I'm young for this. Maybe I don't need this right now. Maybe next chapter of life I can get that then. But going back a little bit also, I had a thought, when you were saying that what happens when you reach that level of success and you made it so big, so young, don't you also get more opportunities then? Like if you're that successful, don't opportunities come easier?
But then human nature to become complacent, right? It's like, for example, if my goal is to meet the President of India, let's say that's been my dream and my goal, and I'm doing everything possible from a young age to reach there. And I'm Gen Z, I'm 29 and I meet the President of India, I've reached that goal. What do I do then? So then that's when a lot of people, like you're saying, might move forward, but most people land up spiraling downwards because they're like, that happened. How do I up that? Because in the end, it's the dopamine, right? Everybody's
100%.
looking for that
Yeah.
huge dopamine hit or that huge next thing. But sometimes you don't know how to top what you were looking to achieve all those years. How do you top that?
See, I probably can't answer that because I'm not there yet.
No, but you're successful in your own way at a very young age. A lot of people from my generation probably haven't even gotten where you have at your age,
Yeah, I guess so. But I think that also in my generation, the aspiration is to retire early. So there's another thought in my head that actually they may be happy if they have everything and they can retire early and they can travel the world and be with their family. Maybe it's okay. Just a thought.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. Probably we come from this thought process that retiring only happens when you're halfway into
Yeah.
the grave. It doesn't happen before that. Maybe that's the mindset we come from. Anyway, moving on, tell me, have you ever experienced burnout in disguise?
I have got this question a lot because even while I was working with JP Morgan, everybody used to ask me that, the work-life balance must be like close to nothing. Your work hours must be so long. But to be honest, like, if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I've never felt like it's drowning me out or, that it's a burnout. I feel driven. So the kind of person I am, if I'm not making an impact, if I'm not contributing, that's when I feel emotionally off. That's when I feel like maybe I'm not good enough. Like why am I not being able to achieve this? So for me, it's a little bit the other way around, and I'm having to really work on myself with that. But it's more about under contributing, which gives me that feeling of burnout. Like, I'm trying so hard. Why isn't this happening? That's when I feel burnout. But if I'm like achieving, I'm making an impact, I can see that, okay, like things are going well. I'm driven, I have that energy. I have that kind of thing to keep going, whatever time of day, whatever day of the week. So it's like, as you said, it's like that drug that keeps you going as soon as you start seeing things happening. For me, like that doesn't give me burnout. Burnout is when I'm not being able to add value.
How do you handle disappointment?
I'm a very resilient person. I think that's like one of my strongest suits. So I might have a setback for a little bit, but I'm inherently, I don't know how exactly, but able to pick myself up. So that's been something that's really kept me going my whole life, to be honest. So I think, what is it? I think what's driven me actually, if I have to sit and reflect, though I've never actually reflected this, is going back to the same thing I said right in the beginning, that where do I see myself when I'm 40? Where do I see myself when I'm like middle-aged, basically? And it's just like I have so many dreams and aspirations that's what keeps me going. Okay, this didn't work, on to the next thing. This didn't work, on to the next thing. But that goal has to be reached.
Great, because a lot of people lose sight also of the goal when the disappointment becomes very big. So tell me the one instance in your work life or your home life or your life in general that has made you question everything.
That's a really tough one. I think it was actually this move from being in London, because when I went to London, I didn't think I knew I would eventually come back home to India. My family's here. But I didn't think it would be this soon. I thought I'll be like, around 35, 40 and then kind of move back. But it all happened really soon, and that made me question that, I put in so much effort into getting this job, and then so much effort into being so good at this job. And now suddenly in a matter of few months, I want to change the entire trajectory. Like, have I wasted the last few years? Or, like, am I someone who's not able to make up my mind? So I think that's what made me question a lot, because it was not a lot of only career changes, but also a lot of personal life changes. I was moving countries, I'm engaged, my fiance lives in London, I live in Delhi. So it was like a host of questions that, am I doing the right thing? But somehow I just like, in terms of the career aspect, it was an easy decision. The product was amazing. The team was great. I knew exactly where I could fit in. I knew I didn't have to create a space. I knew that that's what Spotted Cow needed at that time, and I can deliver it. So career-wise, sorted. Personal life-wise, I got so much support from everybody around me that for a moment I didn't hesitate or feel down. So while there were a few months where I was just all over the place, am I making the right decision or not, it took me almost a year to even make up my mind completely and make that move. But that year gave me a lot of clarity that yes, you're doing the right thing. I had done so much research, homework, informally worked with Spotted Cow to see the responses. And that's like, it just gave me clarity then.
Do you have any regrets at all?
None. Honestly, none so far. I think that every opportunity in my life has made me prepared for what I'm doing today in any way. So I really don't have any regrets.
That's a very mature way of looking at it. And I don't know if it's a generation thing, if it's a Tarini thing, but I hope a lot of people listening and watching can understand that if we have that kind of clarity in mind, what do we looking to achieve in the end? What is the larger picture? Where do we see ourselves in 20 years? And when we make those small sacrifices, then we know they're counting. They're adding up to it. It's a compounding effect, right? It's finally getting you where you really need to be in the larger scheme of things. So that kind of mindset at such an early age is actually quite fascinating and very nice to see. So tell me, what does anxiety look like in the face of a brand that you've not created, but you've joined and you're taking forward?
I think it's a very unique sort of anxiety, which I've never had to feel before really. Because like Spotted Cow is very B2B heavy, so you're constantly going yourself, meeting people in the industry, trying to increase your customer base. So not only do you have to understand your business and your product so well, because any question can be thrown at you, and these are people very well educated, exposed chefs, restaurateurs, etc., etc. So you don't only need to know your product super well, but you need to know the client. What is their business requirement? How does their business function? Is what I'm proposing to them even making sense to them? And more than anything, like understanding how they speak, how they think, building trust with them. Because today, at least in this space, hospitality, F&B, it's all about relationships. It's all about like trusting each other.
It's in the world.
It's in the world. Yeah, it's exactly. It's anywhere you
Yeah.
see. So
Any business is running on relationships.
Exactly. So I think it was a very unique sort of anxiety, but it was really easy. So I guess the first few times that I was going out and had just about started working with Spotted Cow, it was there, but what helped me was going out and doing that. That was the process of learning. And confidence for me came from understanding the product more, asking more questions, getting whatever training required from my technical teams on the product itself, how it's made, things like that. But the main thing was just being confident, being honest, being resourceful, and admitting, okay, I may not have that answer right now for you, but I'll definitely come back, and I have a great team that's helping me, with this. I'm not a solo person over here. And that's kind of what helped the anxiety, really.
You kept it real.
Yeah, I just keep it real, and everyone is human, so they get it.
So what's the one hustle culture lie you personally fell for and had to unlearn?
This is easy. I think it's like the whole concept of being productive from 9 to 5. Like, I just never understood that concept, even when I was in the corporate world. Because you don't know when that opportunity will come, that thought will come, what time of day is more efficient, effective for you to be speaking to clients, etc. So that's something I had to unlearn super fast. Also, just sitting on your desk and being busy doesn't necessarily mean you're being effective or impactful. So that's something I had to unlearn. And even coming into the, kind of emerging companies, startup space in India, a lot of people, were all about like, okay, now it's, you have to spend 9 to 5 or X amount of hours in your role, etc., etc. And I just never understood that, because for me, it's like Spotted Cow is sort of my baby now. And I'm thinking about it all the time. So if I'm scrolling on Insta, I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting chef I should reach out to. Or wow, that restaurant's doing great stuff. It could be a great thing to work with them. Or that person's so interesting, let's collaborate. So there's no time of day and number of hours. You can close more, you can close as many deals or make that much impact in your business in 2 hours or 6 hours. It's again very human dependent. How quick are you, how efficient are you?
Yeah, I think success does not come from that 9 to 5 mindset. I think you have to do more than that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the 9 to 5. If people are happy and satisfied, great. But I think when you want to take it to the next step, it has to be more than that. You have to give a lot more. I think, like you very rightly said, at what hour, who you need to reach out to. If you limit yourself, you're not going to make it to the next level.
Absolutely.
You're going to stay where you are, because the world doesn't function like that. And if you see the most successful people, they are, I'm sure, working any hour of the day. They're available any hour of the day. They'll make sure they respond because they want to get that done. So I think anyone on a career journey needs to understand that there is no 9 to 5 if you're looking to make it big in life. It has to be that I am dedicating myself to making it big. This is my goal, and whatever it takes, I have to be able to give it that.
Absolutely. And I read this, I don't know, it was a meme or a quote or something on Insta recently saying that founders are the quickest people to respond. Because
I
as
agree.
you mentioned,
Yeah.
they just want to get that off, check it off their, to-do list and like move things faster.
Yeah, because the hunger is there, right? You're the founder. So you want this baby to flourish. Everybody wants their child to do best in school. Everybody wants their child to be first in the race. Everybody wants their child to shine the brightest when they're dancing on stage. It's like that. It's like your product or your company becomes that baby. So you look at it with that much love as you would to a child.
Yeah, and you don't want to miss out on any opportunities.
Yeah, I guess that is definitely the one of the biggest reasons, right? It's because everybody's like, I don't want to lose out, and I don't want someone else coming in because there are a million people waiting if you don't take that chance.
True.
When do you feel most disconnected with your journey? And if you do, how do you find yourself coming back?
I think, again, I sort of mentioned this earlier, but it's like that lack of certainty, not knowing whether a business decision is going to end up well or as planned. I think that's what kind of disconnects me a little bit. But then what helps me kind of jump back into the game is, looking at the consumer feedback, looking at everybody we work with, their feedback on the product, how well the product is doing, with minimal efforts, if we're able to make X amount of sales or, grow the performance by a significant level, like that just reinforces like why you're doing what you're doing, why the product is good, why it's worth it. And that just helps me kind of jump back into it.
So you're inspired. okay, and let's say you're self-inspired, that you want to reach somewhere, but not necessary that everybody in your team is as inspired or everybody is that driven. How do you drive people working around you?
So I'm a firm believer that in a team, everybody should have different skill sets, which are complementary, but they don't have to be the same. In fact, I feel like they should not be the same because, if you're a team of 3, like we are at Spotted Cow, we should all have different things we bring to the table, and that's what makes us such an amazing.
No, but that is skill set. Being driven is completely different. You might have a skill set very different to mine, but your level of drive and my level of drive don't match. It'll still be very difficult to work together. Even though the skill sets might combine and make a beautiful combination, but it's that level of being driven. So what happens is when there's one founder, you're very driven, you make certain things happen. There are 2 founders, 3, the level of drive, the level of want or hunger is different. How do you drive everyone to reach the same speed of things that you're at?
Honestly, I think the drive comes when you grow. Like, you grow 1%, then you're like, wow, we're doing so well, let's do a little bit more, let's put in more effort. Then you grow 5%. So I think it's like seeing that effort turn into result that drives people and gives them that inspiration to keep going. Honestly, like I really feel that, and I've pretty much seen that at Spotted Cow. The moment we're saying, okay, wow, this city, we're like conquering it, we're like doing so well here, on to the next one, not next, let's like target 3 at a time. That's what drives us, really.
What are your 3 biggest learnings from your corporate job?
I think the first one is don't limit yourself. So yeah, we all have job descriptions and we all have to, fulfill 5 things, let's say. If you want to contribute to the 6th, 7th, 8th thing, like go ahead and do it. Whether you get recognition or not, like there's something you'll get from it. There will be people who give you credit for that or hold you in high regard, or, there's something you will achieve. So like if you want to give something more than what you're required to, do it. So I think like that's something I really learned. The other thing was discipline. So although it's a corporate job, although you have a manager, although you have a team that you're kind of answerable to, I learned to basically like not have a manager. So it was like, what is it? It's like you're self-managed, you don't need somebody to say, okay, why aren't you at 9? Like why are you leaving before 5? Why is this not done? So like something I learned was to be independent even in the corporate space, which has now helped me so much more, in this experience. So yeah, I think these 2 things are like the big highlights of what I took away.
What is the one thing that you learned at corporate job that you felt like was a huge downer and you had to let go of?
The whole system of hierarchy. Like, I don't know if that answers your question, but the whole system of hierarchy. Like, if you're someone who's an overperformer, overachiever, delivering results much more than expected, I just couldn't wrap my head around why you can't be progressed faster. And I'm sure there's like lots of valid reasoning for it, but that's something which was a bit of a downer, that, you are performing maybe even better than your manager or like your peer who's been there for longer than you, but you're not getting that pedestal to move ahead. So I think that is something that was a downer for me, but I also think maybe that's why a lot of people decide to maybe step away from the corporate space.
Yeah, you're right. Because when you're working way harder and achieving way more goals than required to, then you want to fasten up your process of moving upwards. But I think it doesn't work like that. It's time-based, company rule-based, hierarchy-based, like you said. And it's also based on, I feel, I think age does play a role. Because I worked in not a corporate space, but I did work in a very big firm when I was much younger. And they had this mindset like people of this age don't move up. No matter how talented you are, no matter how good you're at your job, but they don't move up in this space. So they kind of keep you there because they feel you don't have enough experience or you don't have enough knowledge. That's just the mindset. So you may or may not, like one can run a business at 24 and be very successful, but in a corporate job, it'll be very hard to run up the ladder at that age. So I think maybe it's even age restricted to some extent.
Yeah, you're right. And then, going back to that whole point about this generation not having that patience to wait, like it's all kind of intertwined, right? Like they don't have the patience to wait. And at the same time, we have founders who are making like such innovative companies, making so much impact as you said, at such a young age as 20. So for us, like this generation, like while there's a lot of respect for people who are older, there's also a disconnect. Like that much value is not given just because you are, you have 40 years of experience. you may have more knowledge than me. You know, like there's always a level of respect, but I don't think in my generation people value that age thing as much as before.
Yeah, I think age was a huge respect level given automatically compared to how Gen Z sees it. It's just a different way of seeing.
It's just a different way. Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever had to choose between what's right and what sells most?
All the time, I think. So it's also like, you know, what's right, going with your gut feeling, going with what your heart thinks. I think that's also a little too romanticized because it doesn't always go along with like what is right for your business and the way business functions, like the way any business should function. So to a certain extent, your gut feeling, very important. You know, you can't do without that, and you shouldn't do without that. But after that, like what sells is what's important, because at the end of the day, you've created a product, you want it to scale, you want it to survive, you want it to move. And for that, you need to think about what is selling. So it's a balance, but after a certain extent, it's more about like what sells without letting your ethical values kind of get demeaned.
What's your relationship with failure? Do you fear it or do you flirt with it?
Neither.
Because everybody's had failure in some sense in their
Yeah.
life. It's not like anybody's always aced it, right?
No,
So
absolutely.
if you haven't aced it, means somewhere you failed because my goal was to reach this, but I reached here. So it's some sort of failure. I'm not saying you failed completely, but you've not been able to achieve. And I think everybody has that in life. If today my aim was to reach at 12 o'clock and I reached at 12:30, I failed in some way. So I'm saying failure in every sense. There's failure every day. We may realize it, not realize, think about it, not think about it, but it happens with us. So are you somebody who fears it, or does Gen Z just embrace it?
I think it's a bit of embracing, but also like reflecting on it, studying on it, that kind of thing. I don't believe that failure is like a stop sign. It's like a signpost. You're going along, failure happens, you learn from it. As you said, everybody fails. I failed n number of times, but those failures have made me understand myself better. What is it I'm good at? What is it I'm not so good at? So it's like more like, you're learning. It's something you keep learning from. That's the way I kind of take
So
it.
you don't attach too much emotion to it.
No, I've always, as I said, I've been pretty resilient. I'm good to kind of get up and, how do we fix it? What's the next thing? So I've never really got stuck onto failure.
Has your self-worth ever tangled up with the fact that you didn't find this brand, but at the end of the day, you are helping it become a huge success?
I think all the time. So coming in, at a much later stage than it was founded, you're having to keep proving yourself. It might not be kind of said by the team, or it might not be said by the investors or anything like that, but it's more like a self thing that you want to prove yourself, you want to prove your worth to be attached to a brand that's already established, that already has like a loyal customer base that's doing well. So I think it's all the time, but I find that that separation, everybody keeps talking about separate yourself from your business. I sometimes don't understand that, because how do you do that? The business, and if you're at like founder level, the business equals you equal the business, like that's pretty much it. So how do you really do that? So for me, it's more like you integrate that into your self-worth. So for me, it's like, I just keep doing what I'm doing, making that impact, growing the business in whichever ways that I'm kind of working on. And that gives me that self-worth, because I'm not trying to fight that separation, to be really honest. I'm not trying to fight it, because I know it's going to be there. Like, I sacrificed a lot. I changed my whole life around. I have full skin in the game. I can't separate it.
But honestly, life is easier when your self-worth is not based on work. So one is self, that is me, and one aspect is life, one aspect is family. So life is pretty much divided into relationships, finance, health, and your spiritual, where you're looking to ultimately achieve, whether it's detachment, whether it's self-awareness, whether it's love with God, whether it's spirituality, freedom of thought, whatever it may be. So in these 4 departments, if one department, like you said, work, takes over your self-worth completely, then aren't you like really denying yourself of everything else?
Yeah, definitely. So I think you have to like strike a balance in every aspect of your life.
No, but like you said, your self-worth actually does depend on the work. How can work define your worth? So my point is that, and I've heard a lot of Gen Z say this, if this business didn't exist, what would I do? This is all I have. I'm nothing without this. But you were something without this. You will be something without this. It is just a frame of mind. Have you ever looked at it like that?
I think you're really completely right. So I think what it is that maybe it's priority. So maybe this part of my life, these few years, like my priority is to prove myself in my career, and that's
But
why
prove to
that
who?
myself. I want to feel like, okay, I was well educated. Been given so much exposure. I had great career opportunities. Like, have I made the most of it? It's more like a self thing. And if I get outside recognition, bonus points. But I think why I'm linking the self-worth to business and, just mixing it all up is because right now that's my priority.
So do you feel you're going to learn the art of detachment with work?
I guess I'm going to have to.
Yeah, because I don't think identity can rely on a business. So you had an identity before Spotted Cow, and for example, God forbid, life gives you a very huge opportunity where you very smoothly walk away from Spotted Life, and you'll suddenly find that Tarani is not Spotted Life and Tarani has her own identity. So identity is not work. Identity is not your business, and I think this is something I've recently observed or recently read up about a lot of places where people are so attached to their in the founder space
Yeah.
to their babies. Whatever they founded is this is me, but that is not you.
Actually, that's true. And I've also, heard a lot, studied a lot that sometimes if you're too overly attached, you may not even take the correct business decisions because, you're thinking about it in only one perspective and maybe like what you wish for it to do, even though it might not be the best thing. So like now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. Like there has to be some level of detachment that we need to take even decisions that are better for the business versus what's better for me and the business. So you are right. Like that is something our generation has to kind of accept firstly and then work towards in a healthy way.
So what version of yourself are you currently becoming, and what version of yourself you feel like you've shed off?
So I'm inherently a very type A personality, super impatient in good ways, but many times bad ways as well. Like, I'm very action oriented. I need to see movement. So I'm sort of balancing that out and shedding that, that need to constantly just do, because it doesn't always mean that hurry is resulting in actual business performance. So working with a team, not being a solo founder, joining a team of founders, all that has been a great reflection on like aspects of myself that I need to improve. And I think that hurry, that need for rush, that it all stems out of some anxiety, right? Like that need to constantly rush things up. I think that's what I'm kind of shedding, and I'm reflecting a lot more. Every decision I'm taking with a lot more like thought, consciousness, research, homework, and seeing better results so far. I think also coming into a team that's already present for so long, I've had to be very sensitive in the way that I'm approaching things.
Yeah,
so
correct.
at some level, I was brought in to disrupt, to take it to that next level. But I can't just go and shake things up, like I have to kind of have respect for whatever was done in the past, all the efforts that were put over the years, who's founded it, how they're operating. So that's what's made me actually calm down, is joining this team that was already existing and having that level of sensitivity before changing things around. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that does, because one is starting from scratch and one is picking up the load when it's already reached a certain point and saying, hey, we need to make this big, but respectfully from where it's come. So yeah, I think that's a great space to handle it like that. It's great. Tell me, if you could whisper something to a first time ever founder, what would it be?
Few things. So firstly, keep going, like don't stop. Even if you don't get that reply, you don't get that answer, that first time the result is not showing, like keep going. As we spoke about earlier, consistency is key. Another thing that I feel at some level doesn't happen enough is like collaboration, being open to collaborate, work with even brands in the same space as yourself, because I am a true believer that if you work together, the growth is exponential. It's not linear. I believe that. I've seen that in the Western world. It works. I do see a lot of competition here, and sometimes it's a bit demeaning, or not demeaning, but it's a bit like demotivating.
Yeah.
So something as as someone who's joined Spotted Cow as a founder, like I would love to collaborate with more brands in the industry, cross industries, and I think another thing is saying yes more than saying no, because that's what's helped me. I've always pretty much said yes to any opportunity and seen how it goes. Got whatever I could from it, didn't work out, move on. Got a lot from it, learned something or the other from it.
We always do.
Yeah. So I think like one of the biggest things I would say to any founder is say yes more than no. You know, do your full homework and try your level best before you close any doors.
How does Gen Z switch off and find that zen?
Wow. I don't know how to answer that. That is like, it's a great question. Okay, so if I have to put myself into my own shoes, for me, I found like chanting for a few minutes a day. It's not really about the chanting essentially. It's more like it gives me the time to reflect, think about my goals. You know, what am I working towards? What do I want? Is it on line, on track with like the way I'm spending my time every day? So for me, that's how I kind of be zen and switch off for those 10 minutes a day. I need that. You know, people can meditate and achieve the same thing. People can journal and achieve the same thing. These days, I see a lot of like founders use sports as that medium to kind
Yeah.
of switch off. You know, paddle is like the new big thing, and all the like founders and everyone in Gen Z is like severely obsessed with paddle
Or pickleball?
or pickleball. So I think like sports is another medium people take to do that.
Yeah, I do. But I'm not Gen Z. This is not a part of the thing. So Tarini, in the end, I would like to shoot a few questions at you. It's called Burst the Bubble and give me the first answer that comes to your mind.
Fun.
If self-doubt were a team member at the Spotted Cow, what would its job title be?
Chief vibe checker.
What's a mental wellness ritual that you'd never post about but totally swear by?
I think the chanting. You know, I spoke about the chanting earlier, so it's that.
If your inner critique had an Instagram bio, what would it say?
Full-time overthinker, part-time imposter, craving perfection.
Amazing. What's one business decision you made purely from the heart and it worked?
Saying yes to Spotted Cow.
What's the weirdest place or situation where you've had a creative breakthrough?
I think on the top of the ski slope, just when I was going to go down.
What would your out of office auto reply say if it were written by your nervous system?
Out of office, but mentally responding to emails, will reply when I actually turn off.
If your mental health were a product on your website, what would the product description say?
Limited batch, prone to overdrive, best consumed after 8 hours of sleep.
Amazing. Thank you, Dharani. It's so refreshing to speak to somebody who's an open-minded Gen Z, who's able to answer all the questions I threw at you and absolutely honest about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashna. I had a great time. Hi, I'm Tarini Gupta. I had a great conversation with Ashna on the Therapy Diaries, where I spoke about the challenges of startup life, navigating the ups and downs of building a brand, and how I keep creativity alive while also leading through change. You can catch the episode on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.